So, welcome back, everybody, to the top 60 albums of the 60s. We made it to the top five.
Yes.
This is it, folks. And you may notice yet another special guest surprise below us here.
Yes, indeed. Today we have the honor and the privilege of having Grim from the Dude and Grim Show on the channel Scratch a Track here with us today. Grim, how are you doing, man?
Dude, I'm doing great. Thank you guys both for having me. I never would have thought of my name being prefaced with honor and a privilege, but it's also an honor and a privilege for me as myself and a representative of the Dude and Grim Show, because Dude couldn't be here. So thank you very much. We really enjoyed compiling the list, and I'm excited to talk about the top five.
Oh,
Absolutely,
man. Yeah, thank you so much for being here, man. Scratch a Track is a brilliant channel. Everybody needs to check it out. Immediately.
Thanks, man.
We'll plug it again towards the end of the show, probably multiple times, but let's not waste any time. Let's get right to the top five. At number 5, Rubber Soul by the Beatles. You knew we were going to have some more Beatles on the list, and here we go. Not the last either. Spoiler alert, but
yeah, you kind of had to. I mean,
yeah.
it was the change for them that I don't think anyone expected, but so many people really gravitated toward.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's such a game changer in 1965. I mean,
oh yeah,
Norwegian Wood, one of the most brilliant Lennon ballads. That's him really kind of going for more of a Dylan type tune, and then of course adding the sitar by Harrison is just man, so cool. That song alone I think stands out big time. But then they were really just flexing all their musical muscles on this album. Nowhere Man, and then you got The Word, a great rocker. I'm jumping all over the place, but Michelle, even this kind of French ballad by Paul.
Dude, In My Life.
Oh my God, one of the best.
Yeah, it's it's interesting because when you think about the lyrics of Norwegian Wood, it's really like a weird, dark song.
It really is.
You know what I mean?
Burning down
really
a house. Yeah.
Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah, I mean, I can't imagine getting to that point with a person, let alone after one instance with them. You're like, you know what? Unfortunate. This is it.
And you even see like the influence that it's had on like so many other artists just lyrically, because obviously you have obviously Fourth Believers off of Blonde on Blonde just like a year later.
Yeah.
And even
is it
Taylor Swift.
Fourth Believers or Fourth Time Around? But dude, that song was specifically, I believe, Dylan's answer to this song.
Yeah,
and you can hear it so much in the melody and the way it's played. I mean, it's that's cool.
Exactly.
And even on like Taylor Swift's album from last year, or I think it was 2 years now, Evermore. There was a song where she like talks about like she has a lyrical reference to Norwegian Wood, so you kind of see like how far that kind of legacy has extended. Yeah, and it's just really great to see like how groundbreaking is. One of the first recordings in popular music to have a sitar on it, and so that's pretty groundbreaking within itself. But I mean, all these, this was really the gap that closed Help and Revolver. It was that midpoint when they really started smoking a little of that good stuff there. And
they're more than that, but yes,
right,
yeah, for sure.
After Dylan influenced them,
Dylan influenced them in many ways, not just lyrically. But even so, I mean, just starting off, I with the UK version of Drive My Car, you hear that down, and it's just like amazing, and it just kicks you right into this album, and this is going to be a different Beatles record. And of course you have other like You Won't See Me, great McCartney ballad, great melody. Nowhere Man is really one of the best early psychedelic Beatles songs, and just the 3-part harmonies. I think this is the album where they kicked it up an entire notch.
Totally.
I mean, nobody sounded like these guys.
And what about Think for Yourself, that fuzzed out bass? I mean,
that's cool. Nice. I was gonna also offer kind of the influence of like ska and stuff in the word. in those
Mm,
you know,
yeah.
the way they play guitar, that was one thing
Hmm.
that kind of comes throughout the album, is it's like you get a window into some of Harrison's later playing style.
Yeah,
Mhm.
for sure.
And yeah, I mean, just talk about Harrison lyrically, like especially on Think for Yourself, like this is where you really start to see him assert his dominance as a songwriter. Obviously, he wasn't putting out as many classics as Lennon and McCartney because obviously they didn't let him. But just listen to like
Yeah,
lines like "Although your
that's
mind's
an important distinction.
Yeah.
right, exactly." And but I mean, just listen to lyrics like "Although your mind's opaque." Like, who was like writing lyrics like that at that time? But it's just really brilliant. The melodies, the lyrics, and of course you have, you know, as we were talking about the word. Michelle, and I just love the story. If you guys see McCartney 3-2-1, where he's telling Rick Rubin how like that song started out as a party trick, like that chord progression,
Right.
and then he just like decided Michelle, my belle,
Hmm.
and then he had his friend who was a French teacher translate, these are words that go together well, my Michelle, and then like they translated it in
Interesting.
French and put it on that other verse. So I just think that's absolutely brilliant. And then of course Lennon's answer to that later in the album with Girl, which I think is one of his best
Beautiful
songs
melody.
lyrically. I
Yeah.
mean,
Yeah,
and you know, it's like the line where it's like, and she promised the earth to me and I believed her, and you know, it
yeah,
like
yeah,
oh,
yeah. Good,
you know,
Great
good
stuff.
lyrics.
a man
Yeah.
must break his back to earn his day of leisure. Will she still believe that when he's dead? It's like, oh my goodness, some of his most scathing lyrics.
You
Yeah.
know, an interesting thing about that too is I feel that he was, or not just he, but I guess to a degree Harrison too, but and that's only limited by his the amount that he could contribute. But Lennon and McCartney, I think they were able to talk about women in relationships in sort of a way that was more introspective than a lot of things that were going on at the time. I think a lot of
Mhm.
things were just more straightforward. And when you listen and actually read the lyrics, they seem kind of childish in a way. But I think this was like that bridge to another place where you could write things that were from that place, but yet introspective.
Yeah.
Right. No, and it totally was because you automatically see like leaps and bounds how much lyrically this
Yeah.
album is
Oh,
better
absolutely.
than any
Hmm.
of their stuff.
Yeah.
And I think especially you see that nowhere better than in my life, which I
Yeah.
think is probably I think this is the best song on the album. I think Lennon really wins this one. He has all the best songs, and this one is just so beautiful. You know, there are places I'll remember all my life, and just him going back and looking on all the people that came
Those
through
some
his
have
life.
changed.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
that harpsichord solo
The
by
sped
George
up one,
Martin.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Really
dude. And
cool.
that's why I'm sorry. If there's ever an argument, if you want to talk about the fifth Beatle, it is George Martin.
Absolutely.
Hands down.
Definitely. Oh yeah. Well, guys, we are only at number 5, so let's see what's next at number 4.
Revolver. And
So good.
Revolver is the same. I believe once Revolver hit, everything was the same from then on, maybe with the exception of Magical Mystery Tour from the UK and the US. So everything that I know here is what is.
Yes. And man, what another, I mean, right after Rubber Soul, it's almost like perfect in the ranking here.
Yeah.
But
Going through
yeah,
history, yeah.
exactly.
Went a little more kind of rock and psychedelic in some instances, and then pulled back on some ballads, I think, too, with this one, really.
Yeah, to me, the opening 1-2 punch of Taxman and Eleanor Rigby is just like such a great opening.
Right.
Yeah, I agree. To me, Eleanor Rigby is almost kind of, if anything, a throwback, and not even a throwback, but I mean reminiscent of yesterday in the way that the strings are employed
Mhm.
with it. But
Yeah,
Yeah,
take
it was more amplified, you know, because that started out with just like a few strings, but here was like an actual like I believe it was a quartet or an
Yeah.
octet. I'm not sure, but you see those arrangements that George, once again, to your point about George Martin being the fifth Beatle. I mean, he
Dude.
was really the orchestrator behind all
Yeah.
of this, and the arranger, and Paul even said like this song would not be anywhere near as good as it was if it weren't for that George Martin arrangement.
Yeah, it would have just
Mhm.
been basically an acoustic ballad, right? I mean,
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, something like that. But and that's the thing that's so great about it, because you get the strings, you get the weird, trippy sounds. Because this album was really the point of no return. I mean, things were never going to be the same again after this. They really dived into the psychedelia, and they just pulled no punches.
Yeah,
I mean,
true.
really.
and
and
they
just from the
vowed to
opening.
never play live again after this album.
yeah,
right?
that's
Or
very
basically,
true. Was
Yeah.
it Candlestick Park was the last one?
I believe so.
I'm not
If I'm
Yeah.
not
sure, but
mistaken.
probably.
But-
Now, if you guys, what is a favorite? What is your favorite song off this one?
Oh, that's actually a great question, because my favorite Beatles song is actually on this album, and that's Here, There, and Everywhere.
Mm.
I think it's the greatest ballad Paul McCartney
Wow.
ever wrote. Yeah.
That's your favorite Beatles song out of all. I'm sorry, man. This is like a Scanners moment. My head's blowing up. That's your favorite Beatles song
Yeah.
out of all of them.
Well,
Wow.
here's the thing. Listen. So just
Okay.
from a structural standpoint, just the way like he starts with that first verse here, like the way he plays with the title. It starts with here, and then he leads in the second verse with there, and then you get to that chorus where he's like, I want her everywhere. And just
Yeah.
from a harmonic perspective, I mean, it is incredible. The chord progression's amazing. It's so subdued. It's just so beautiful. It's just such a heartfelt ballad. Everything about it screams masterpiece. And I love when you can play with words like that.
Yeah,
it's just
that
brilliant.
is some that is some good work.
Melodically too, it's top notch. But for me, Eleanor Rigby is my favorite on the
Yeah.
album.
Okay.
I just think, I think McCartney wins this album.
Oh, yeah, easily.
Lennon won Rubber Soul, but
Yeah.
what about you, Grim?
It's really tough to say because it is a great album. I do like She Said, and
Oh,
I
yeah.
really like kind of the darkness of Love You Too. But dude, I think there's another podcast I listen to, and that's called The History of Rock Music in 500 Songs. Have you ever heard about this?
I don't know if I have.
No.
Dude, look it up. It is immaculate, and
Okay.
he goes into detail on one of the songs he chooses by the Beatles, which of course they have more songs than I think anyone in this series.
Right.
But Tomorrow Never Knows is one of the songs he chooses. And for me, as someone who's recorded music for years, and like the technical aspects of what they did at the time, and I've always liked that
Amazing.
song anyways, just because of that groove they established. But man, when I understood some of the technical details for that time, I was that
Yeah.
kinda takes
Got to
it.
give a shout out to Ringo on that
Oh
track
my
too. His
goodness.
Oh,
drumming is
yeah.
top
Some of the
notch.
best drumming he
Absolutely.
ever done.
Unreal.
Totally
how-
underrated
he-
drummer in so many
Yeah.
ways, because it's sometimes like David Gilmour, it's not that you played the most amazing solo ever, it's that you played the right part.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's the thing with Ringo on that. I mean, really, I know Beatle fans who say he's not a great drummer. It's like, what the hell are you talking about? Are you
Disagree.
even a Beatles
Disagree
fan?
with that
Like, you're
statement
not.
wholeheartedly.
Totally.
He's
Yeah.
so great, and really the guy who, he's the backbone of the Beatles, obviously, and everyone knows that. But even just on other songs on this album too, like just even the subtle like fills he doing on like Good Day Sunshine are really great. And so what a great pop tune. Just
yeah.
so much
Yeah.
fun. And you get so much diversity on here too, because then you get Andrew Bird can sing with that amazing dueling guitar solo by
Such
Paul
an
and
underrated
George
track,
Harrison.
man. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
surprising Lennon didn't like it. Well, then I guess maybe not, because Lennon didn't like half the songs he wrote. But it's such a blistering guitar riff, and just such a catchy melody, such an amazing movement. Melodically, it's incredible. And even then you get songs like For No One, which I think features Paul McCartney with some of his best bass playing. Just the lyrics on there.
Dude, okay, you want to talk about underrated playing? I wholeheartedly think Paul McCartney is probably, if not one of the best bass players in rock
Yeah.
and roll.
No
I mean,
doubt. Top five.
When
for
you
sure.
look at
I'm
like
into it.
the stuff he does, I don't it's strange to me because I had played in a band with a guy who, if I would play bass, he was like, you play bass like a guitarist. And
Mhm.
I don't know how not to do that, but McCartney seems to like straddle that line and kind of go back and forth so effortlessly with what he does. It's incredible.
Totally. Plus, he even plays the blistering guitar solo on Taxman. Like
Yeah.
the man is a genius. I mean,
Which is
no doubt.
funny because that, for some reason, I've seen lists before of like some of the top guitar solos, and for whatever reason, that guitar solo gets listed, which I kind of get because technically speaking, it may not be the most amazing thing, but just the feel and the
Mhm.
rawness of it, like you said, the attack of that guitar solo, like that's
Right.
it.
It
That's
fits
it.
it perfectly. Yeah.
And
Yeah,
I mean,
absolutely.
just on the note of Taxman too, there's another channel called Professional Musicians React. I don't know if you've seen it, but they were doing a video where they're breaking down like Paul McCartney and then a Thundercat bass line, and just they were breaking down the bass line of Taxman, and the little things he does in that song are absolutely insane. And just the fact he's playing guitar on top of it, and then just on top of the fact that it's one of the best songs George Harrison wrote with the group, I think, and really
Yeah, sure.
one of the best.
Well,
like
it's funny
social
you talk about his bass line. We haven't even
Mhm.
got to Abbey Road yet, but I mean,
Oh my
Oh,
goodness.
yeah. Yeah.
I don't even want to talk
get me
about She's So
started.
Heavy just yet.
Yeah,
But-
we'll see where that ends up. But
Ooh,
speaking of which, we're at number 3. Here we go.
Wouldn't it be nice if we were older, then we would?
Pet Sounds, which may be shocking because I feel like maybe a lot of us felt like it was going to be at least number 2 on this list. But indeed, it ended up at number 3, which I think is a respectable spot. I had a number 2, but considering I'd probably put Days of Future Past at 2, I guess it is my number 3 of the 60s.
dude, I'm so glad you mentioned that because when we compiled our list, dude was like, man, you missed one. And I couldn't think of what I missed. And he was like, Days of Future Past. And oh man, that hit me. Like, how
good.
did I overlook that in the list? Shame on me.
Yeah.
Shame on you.
Shame on you. It
Dude.
should have been higher on the overall.
Dude.
list, for
But
sure.
then
It
again,
should
I
have been
hadn't heard
on the list. Forget about higher. It
Yeah.
should have been on there at all.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But-
man. Well, hey, at least it was on at number 53, but even so, it's definitely, I should have heard it earlier. But anyway, when it comes to Pet Sounds, I mean, you know this album, and yet again, goes right in line of progression of this episode, where this came out in 1966 as well with Revolver, and really obviously didn't get the critical reception that it later would attain, but just really one of the
That is
most
an interesting point.
yeah, no, because people just thought, oh yeah, like it was critically respected, but no one thought, oh, this is one of the greatest albums ever made. They just kind of
Well,
loved
I
it.
think musicians did, but you're right. Critics, I mean, you can't lump those two in the same category because critics,
Mhm.
sometimes I don't understand, you know, where their heads at when they review this stuff. But
Mhm.
Right.
I think the musicians saw it for what it was.
Mhm.
Right.
Because he very quickly like started getting this nickname of like Brian Wilson the genius after that was done.
Oh yeah.
And yeah, because Paul McCartney, even, you know, he heard God Only Knows, he heard Pet Sounds. I think it might be Paul McCartney's favorite album, which wouldn't shock me, but I know God Only Knows
has
is like
said
his
that
favorite song.
Multiple
And-
times. Yeah.
And you see how this, like, it's so funny talking about like Brian Wilson hearing Rubber Soul and saying, oh, that is, you know, that's
American
wow, what a
version.
great album. I got to make something better than that. And then Paul listening to this and go, oh, I got to go
I-
make Sgt. Pepper.
I know, and I think that whole interplay is like the most amazing thing about it because
Mhm.
honestly, like I doubt that Pet Sounds made my top 5. I respect it for what it is, but I can't say that it's one that on a very regular basis I want to put on. And
Same
that's
here,
not
yeah.
because I don't appreciate like what it is. It just it's for me it becomes kind of slow, and there's a lot of the way, like we talked about, the way that McCartney and Lennon would talk about interpersonal relationships in more sort of a deeper way. And I don't think Pet Sounds really had that. It
Oh.
seemed kind of adolescent to me in the way they
Oh,
talked about
oh.
I hear you, and I
Dude,
actually,
I'm gonna twist
a
it.
little
I'm
bit.
gonna twist it.
I'm a little bit with you on that. Like I definitely don't listen to it that often. And it actually, I didn't start getting into the Beach Boys until much later.
Me
And
too.
I actually like the Smile Sessions more, which I'm sure
Oh.
we'll get to with the new millennium whenever we
Right,
get to
right.
that countdown. But I just think that thing is brilliant from
I can't
start
get
to
off of
finish.
Help Me Rhonda. Dude, when
Yeah.
he goes to the D, like,
Yeah.
Well, no,
the
and
F.
Yeah.
but I'll say my piece on this because and I
Yeah.
won't get into it for too long because I've said this on my channel before, so you see my videos, you might know my story with Pet Sounds. I listened to this a very, very integral moment in my life where it felt
Okay.
like everything was against me, and just the way it spoke to me. But of course, obviously, just I knew "Wouldn't It Be Nice," which is one of the greatest sunshine pop songs of all time, and just shows how brilliant the melodies that Brian Wilson was creating are. And then of course you have just just from a production standpoint, all
Oh,
the
I
stuff he's
know.
coming up
That
with,
that part of
like-
it is mind-boggling.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
it's fantastic when you understand how the album was made. It's very interesting. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut
Right.
you off.
No. I mean, of course, like the dogs in the studios, like all that stuff. It's just mind blowing. And of course, the Wrecking Crew with Carol Kay, Hal Blaine. I mean, obviously, we brought Hal Blaine up many times, or at least I have, in my videos. Just one of the greatest drummers of all time. But even like for me, just listening to this album all the way through, you can really see this man searching out for this connection, this meaningful connection. And I'll tell you guys, when I listened to "I Just Wasn't Made for These Times" the first time, that like
that was the
literally
one.
that was the one that spoke to me specifically. I was almost in tears. And then
It
I
wasn't
visited,
Caroline,
like-
no.
well, a little bit, yeah, a little bit.
Um,
Honestly, but that's the thing, man. Like I came back to this like over a year later, and I say like you never listen to Pet Sounds unless you're like next to your stereo, like in tears, listening to it, because it was just it was amazing because it reflected my experience in a different way. It was a completely different moment in my life, completely different experience, but every time I come back to it, it kind of sheds this new lyrical insight. And I've never listened to an album that has ever done that to me. My only complaint about this album is it's not really a complaint. I just don't love the title track because it was like a rejected James Bond theme. And it's cool, but
yeah.
it doesn't really
Yeah.
feel like it fits in. But obviously, Sloop John B was a great.
Dude,
Oh,
what a good cover, because when you
Yeah.
listen to like the folk version of that, it is weak. And I guess that I don't remember if it was Mike Love or whoever brought it to him, threw in a minor chord there at some point in the descent. And like that was one of the things that I think led him to be like, okay, yeah, we can do this. And
Yeah.
I agree with you. Contextually, it does not necessarily fit in the album, but it is one of my favorites.
oh yeah.
Right. But even so, like you get that moment where it's like where Mike Love's saying, "This is the worst trip I've ever been on,"
on.
and you get
Yeah.
that druggy kind of psychedelic thing where you could kind of
Which
see
is
like
Ironic, because Mike Love was the most wiener anti-drug person
The
out there
prude.
in the 60s ever. But
Right.
but
So,
even
and,
so,
God only knows, man. You got to mention that one, of course.
I
Dude.
honestly, in my opinion, the greatest Beach Boys song of all time, one of the greatest songs ever
Oh,
written.
agreed. I mean, if
Yeah.
you were going to make a top 5 like rock songs, that would have to be on it. And again, dude, not to bring it up too much, but dude, that podcast I mentioned, the 500 songs of rock, and like, dude, you got to listen to the podcast on that, because that was where I got like some of this whole basis of Brian Wilson and Rubber Soul, and like how he gravitated toward the American version and that cohesive sound.
Yeah.
Right.
Awesome, man.
Yeah, I totally nerd out about music podcast.
yeah,
Hey,
for
man,
sure.
That one in Disgraceland. Dude,
Yeah. Cool, man.
We gotta
But
plug
yeah,
them on this channel now.
exactly,
Oh,
man.
good luck. Good luck. I think they're making money off there.
Right on. But yeah, I mean, one of the greatest melodies of all time.
Oh,
I mean,
man.
just
And I didn't realize for the longest time that it was his younger brother Carl who was saying the lead
Yeah.
on that one.
right.
I
I didn't
mean,
know
Their
that too.
voices, their voices sound very similar because I've listened. I'm
They
a
do.
huge Beach Boys fan, and it's just like obviously being
It's
from the
so
same
good.
family. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
wild. But that's genetics for you. And yeah, I mean his vocals on that are so beautiful. Just the way that melody. I may not always love you, but long as there are stars above you.
I know.
Oh,
And that was
descent.
one
Oh,
thing that I've heard about is that, like, if you follow some of his lyrical patterns in terms of musical notes and his earlier stuff, it was easy, it was simplistic, but he began to get into these leaps
yeah.
in these intervals when he was doing Pet Sounds that was like atypical of what had been done up to then.
Just incredible.
And
So yeah,
I really feel that's why like he's kind of like him and Stevie Wonder, I think, are kind of like the Bach and Mozart of popular music because nobody was making compositions that complex. And I think that's why this is like maybe the most influential album of all time, really. And that's only
Yeah.
at number 3 on this list.
yeah. So now I think everybody probably knows what 2 and 1 is, but what order
Yeah,
here
see,
we
that's
go.
amen. That's the
at
question.
number
What is the order?
2?
Sergeant Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band.
There it is.
The answer to Pet Sounds right there.
Just this progression is mind blowing, guys.
I know,
I never
and
thought
that's
about
what's
it.
so cool about it is how these things became answers to one another. And man, it's hard to think of a better answer than Sergeant Pepper's.
Yeah.
So
think-
influential.
Yeah, and I think lyrically, the Beatles went into more introspective territory, not only for the Beatles, but kind of for popular music. I mean, I think about like Fixing a Hole and Within You, Without You. I mean, in that one, Harrison's like imparting some of these Eastern philosophies. I can't remember like what the text was, if it was the Tao Te Ching or what, but he was imparting a lot of these philosophies that I think had not been quite said in such a way.
Mhm. And can you believe that's Harrison's only song on the album?
It's very sad, honestly.
Yeah. But then again, I mean, with these songs being so great, it's like what
I know it's
you
hard to
know?
imagine it another way, and that's the thing. It's like you get it, right, but at the same time, you're like, could only a Northern song have fit on this album? I don't know, but it's pretty perfect the way it is.
Right. Personally, I wouldn't put that on there, but I mean,
I was just thinking of Harrison compositions like during that period, because if you listen to like the anthology, you can hear some of like what he was. But anyways,
Exactly.
Sure. I mean,
but yeah,
just
conceptually, I mean, there's not a weak track on here. The way they
No.
flow into one another, the fact that McCartney basically created a new alter ego band for
Yeah.
this project. It's like incredible.
Now, do you know the story about Hendrix covering Sergeant Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band before?
Yeah, like the
actually
night
came
it was
out?
released.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's pretty sweet.
it's crazy, man.
I mean, how big of balls do you have to do that? I mean, and then do it like so well.
Like
Obviously
he
it's
would do
Hendrix.
it. Yeah, where
So
you're
we
just
know-
kind of like giving somebody the finger. I know.
Exactly. But yeah,
I have to say-
yeah. Go
Oh
ahead.
no.
I was just
Well-
gonna say, "A Day in the Life," I mean, is one of the greatest, not just Beatles songs, but songs of all time.
I think objectively the greatest Beatles song, because I was mentioning Here, There, and Everywhere earlier. This is my second favorite Beatles song, and I think by default. I mean, because this was really the last truly great Lennon McCartney collaboration. Besides, You Know My Name, Look Up the Number, of course.
Oh, dude, underrated. I love that.
Amazing.
Yeah, so
I
good.
have many stories about this song, which I will get into at another time. But just I mean, just that opening line, just with John Lennon. I read in the news today. Oh boy, you know that voice that sends
But I
chills
think
down
you're
your
right
spine.
about the collaboration bit, and that's
Mhm.
what's cool about it is you can hear both their parts and they fit together very well.
Oh yeah.
Right, and strung together by that very discordant string sounds where they're playing all these, different intervals that just don't line up with each other, and
Yeah.
that collective chaos that rises into that horn, and then just get into woke up, got out of bed, drank the
Tried
Yeah.
comb across my head.
and,
Yeah,
and it's
so
just
great.
amazing what they're able to do. But even just on its own accords, like all these other songs, just the opening, Sergeant Pepper's Lonely Heart Club Band, great rocker, sets you into the concept of this pseudo band, and then goes right into with a little help of my friends with big.
Hey, let me ask you a question about that
Yeah.
one.
And oh, it's so good. And then Ringo, I think this is Ringo's best song that he sang
I
on.
agree, but here's my
Yeah.
question. Do
Yeah.
you like this one better, or do you like Joe Cocker's better from Woodstock?
I actually like Joe Cocker's better.
I do too.
I have to go with the
I do
Beatles.
too. But yeah, I mean, obviously couldn't have one without the other. But
Exactly.
now, one thing that I was gonna say that I really liked about the lyrics were I felt like this was on a different level than Pet Sounds or any Beatles things leading up to this. Specifically, and I'm glad you brought up A Day in the Life because that is the third example. But the first two are Fixing a Hole and She's Leaving Home.
Oh, thank you
Because
for bringing that up.
whoever
Amazing song.
dude, yeah, and like me being a parent, like, dude, whoever wrote a song about like their kid leaving home?
I
Dude,
know.
it really,
And they're in their 20s when they wrote this. It's like crazy.
that's
Dude,
the best part
it's
about
an
it.
it's an intense song, and like as I
Yeah.
get older and my kids get older, like when I listen to that, it has more of like a reverberance, in my life.
And dude, just the harp solo, and rest in
Mm.
peace of the harpist, because she just passed away last year, I think.
Mm.
But I mean, just I love the thing that's so amazing about the song is really it's this multifaceted portrait, because it's very sympathetic to both parties. Like,
Yes,
because
that's
you
that's a
understand.
great
Yeah.
point. That's a great point. It is not one-sided,
Mhm.
and as if you have them or not, you will learn like these things typically aren't one-sided.
Exactly.
Right,
And it's
right.
just such good storytelling. It paints the picture. You can visualize it. And then culminating in the bye bye. It's
Oh,
Yeah.
so good.
so lovely.
Oh
So
yeah,
good.
oh yeah.
And
Oh,
I
man.
mean, and then even like Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds, which was rumored to be, John Lennon tripping on top of the roof, but such a brilliant song with those sounds coming in right at the beginning. So psychedelic, the lyrics very trippy, and then the sitar.
Oh, and if
coming
you're
in
going
and-
to talk about the sounds, I mean, you'd
Yeah.
be remiss not to mention Being for the Benefit of Mr. Kite.
Oh,
Of
of
course.
course.
Yeah.
Of course. And really, yet again, like the lyrics are so bizarre, but it's like this collage of sounds that you're just so
know.
drawn to. And I
Well,
mean,
and it sounds like a circus, which
Mhm.
Right.
was kind of like the whole bit of it, and that to me, I think that was maybe, and I do not want to say the first, but maybe one of the first instances in rock music of really good word painting.
yeah.
Where like you textured what you were saying with these sounds over the top that like it brings you there as the listener.
Yeah. Yeah.
Absolutely, man. And even so, like just the different styles too, like the kind of music hall stuff with Fixing a Hole we were mentioning is just so brilliant. It's such a catchy melody. That's one that grew on me.
Yeah.
And that's one of my favorite Harrison parts. That
No, no, no. Yeah.
Oh, down. And even
So
like
good.
Getting Better. Yeah, you were talking
Yeah,
about
yeah,
on another
yeah.
lyrical plane. I used to be cruel to my woman. I beat her and kept her apart from the things that she loved. Talking about
that
Lennon's
wouldn't fly today, but I mean,
right. But at least he was being open about
That
it.
is some
there was a
introspection, yeah.
discourse.
yeah,
Even
that
though
would
he
be
was
like a
waltzing
Chris
it.
Brown song, but
Right. Right.
But yeah, man, I mean, Lovely Rita, another great one. The only
Mhm.
one I'm not like that I don't love on this album is Good Morning, Good Morning. It feels a little repetitive, but even then, it's a
oh
really good
man,
song.
hold up. Let me ask you a question. Do you
What's
live
up?
in the town that you grew up in?
Yeah, right now.
You do. Oh, all right. Well, if you don't live in the town that you grew up in, I think the whole sentiment and the whole bit of this song is like you go back to your hometown and you kind of look at it from a different way because you've been gone for a while, you know, and you
Right.
see these
Sure.
things, and it's like this different perspective on everything you ever knew, if that
Right.
makes sense.
Totally. Yeah.
And
yeah.
and I, but yeah, I mean, I don't know. It just never struck me melodically as strong as the other songs on the album. But man, it's
I'll give
still
you
a
that.
really good song.
Yeah, I'll
Yeah.
give you that
Yeah.
for sure.
Yeah, I mean, you
But-
can see why this is, you know, many people to this day still regard it as the best
Not
of
Rolling
all
Stone
time. Well, yeah, but,
Dude, I don't even want to
still one of
talk
the most.
about that.
No,
So I
don't
know if you
mention
saw
that.
our
Sorry.
episode, I use some very colorful language to describe things. on that.
Yes, but yeah, it's still one of the most influential. Nobody can argue that. And now we are to number 1. Abbey Road, come on, it's here,
Dude,
it's
you have
there.
to.
I mean, it's
everywhere.
down there, it's everywhere.
Over
It's-
there, you can't see where I'm pointing.
I'm so
Over
happy
there?
that this was the number 1 album on this list. I mean, it had to be.
It's the greatest album of all time, I think.
That's very hard to argue, man. Yeah, I mean, it's like the
Hmm.
Beatles are, and I always say this when I talk about Abbey Road, they may be the only band that had this trajectory where every album got better and better, and
Agreed.
their last was their best. I mean,
Yeah, I agree.
It's
As an
incredible.
album, for sure.
yeah,
And it's just such a grand vision, because obviously the first half is like the songs they kind of threw on there that they were doing at the time. But I mean, what a more iconic opening than come together with that boom, doom, doo, 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 you know, like
Yeah.
that opening with Ringo on drums once again, but John Lennon just stringing together these very abstract lyrics. It's a
Mhm.
classic. Everybody knows it. And then
And
something.
dude, again, if you had another fifth Beatle, Billy Preston on the roads, like straight
Oh,
up,
yes.
dude. There on Let It Be. I mean, he's like the fifth and a half.
Right,
Yeah, fifth
exactly.
and a half.
yeah.
Yeah.
Whenever he shows up, he's just there,
Dude.
man, right in it. Yeah,
And that's what I liked about the Get Back documentary is it kind of
Mhm.
bridged those 2 albums in all those
Right.
sections. And you could just see all the stuff he was adding. And it's like,
yeah,
if you ever wanted to make an argument for him, I mean, you could be like, I mean, he was on the rooftop concert, just saying.
exactly. Yeah,
Oh,
and it was
yeah.
so cool too in that documentary to see glimpses of some of the songs that would become on Abbey Road, like "Oh
I know.
Darling," when Paul's just playing by himself, when
Oh.
they're taking things down at Twickenham. My God, man!
Didn't they do a version of that too where Mel Evans was hitting the anvil for Maxwell
Oh, on
Silverhammer?
Maxwell
Like, that was so
I
cool.
love that.
That was so cool.
That
He's the
felt like
star of
such
the
a
movie.
that felt like that was constructed for like a music biopic. Like it was
Oh,
that
I
moment.
know.
It's like, I got an idea for a song, and then they come back and they start playing with the anvil. Was amazing. But just
Yeah.
like watching George Harrison come up with something, and something he was like talking about cauliflower or something, and then you
Right.
hear
Oh
the
yeah,
final
yeah,
product.
sure.
Yeah, which by
Oh.
the way ranked number 1 on Johnny Radio's list for the top 100 Beatles songs of all time. And it's hard to make. It's probably my 3rd favorite Beatles song. It's definitely the greatest song George Harrison ever
Third
wrote.
favorite.
Yeah.
You're gonna put that over I Want You, She's So Heavy?
Yeah, man.
Oh, it's blasphemy.
Oh, no, that's actually.
I
I'll
would
be
too.
honest
Actually,
with you, man.
something is my favorite, probably on the album. And
Oh,
my
cousin,
favorite
have
Harrison.
you guys ever
song.
heard Bungalow Bill or oh my goodness.
Yeah,
come
it has
on.
Yoko on it.
But wait,
Bill,
I Want
dude.
You, She's So Heavy is
Fair
incredible.
enough. It's still
It's
works.
great.
I mean, I
Does he-
mean, the heaviest Beatles song other than Helter Skelter. So good.
The Primal Scream. Basically just like an oscillator that's tuned to the noise setting and you just go it's funny.
But dude,
Yeah.
it's I don't know, because for me, it's like when I first heard, I'm like, wow, this is so long. But then you get to that last part where everything's so fuzzed out, and just that like that
Oh, yeah.
abrupt ending. It's just the cacophony of sound that they build on a
And-
song.
And the way that
Fucking
goes into
amazing.
Here Comes the Sun is
Mhm.
like one of the
Right at the
greatest
side change. I mean,
segues
like,
Oh.
ever.
perfect.
And just like listening to it like on digital too, it's like it's so amazing. you know, that shift. And just the shifts on this album are so crazy, but they work so well. Like the shift between Something and Maxwell's Silver Hammer. It's like,
Yeah.
like who would think to put that after that? And then of course you got Oh Darling, which
Yeah.
has one of Paul's best vocals. It's like, when you told me you wouldn't need me anymore, and he's just like
Yeah.
screaming. It's
Oh, yeah.
really, it's unbelievable, his range, the intonation of his voice, the power. And then Octopus's Garden. I mean, such
Okay,
a fun
well,
song.
that brings up a question to me, like for both you guys. I mean, we each have our respective podcasts. What would you scratch off Abbey Road?
I know that
Nothing.
Octopus's Garden was the answer on your channel, right?
Oh, it was mine.
I think that probably would be mine as well. Like, because
Mhm.
it's almost impossible to choose a song on this album because I love that one
Exactly.
too. But if I had to pick, I mean, I think Ringo's effort is probably the weakest.
Yeah, what are you gonna do? Pick like Sun King right in the middle
Oh
of
yeah,
that?
No,
you
no,
can't, yeah, you
no,
can't
you
cut
can't.
any of those.
Yeah.
Yeah, the
And that's what
medley.
I love about that second side. And I think this is why, like, this was the first album I really sat down and listened to. I bought it, and this guy was selling records at my campus. I mean, what a classic story,
Dude,
right? But
I
it
still
and
have
just
this Biznatch unopened from like the 1970s or whenever.
Oh,
really.
wow.
Yeah,
That's
my dad had a bunch of them, and he was like, "You can never open the Beatles albums except for the ones that have been opened." And as soon
Right.
as I got the record collection, I was like, "Sergeant Pepper's," you know.
Yeah,
But for some reason, I have not opened Abbey Road yet. I don't know
But
why. But
Abbey
when
Road
I
was
do,
stayed in the packaging.
It's holy, man. It's holy ground. You can't
Right.
open it.
but
But yeah,
I don't
that-
think it's the first pressing, so it's not like a money loss scenario, you know.
Yeah,
Sure.
exactly.
No, but
But
I was
that
gonna
medley,
say-
man. Yeah,
Oh, dude,
exactly.
yeah.
oh,
So
Yeah,
incredible.
dude, I still, honest to God, like, I can't think of how many times in my life I've quoted the end.
Mm,
Like,
Me too.
and in the end, the love you take is equal to the love you make. I mean, if you could sum up life in a sentence, that's a pretty damn good run for that, right?
right.
Absolutely.
And just for the Beatles alone, I mean, what a final statement. Just
Oh.
it perfectly defines what they did for culture and history. And I mean, I just, as I was saying, I just love how this is put together because I've always loved musical cohesion like this. And of course, Here Comes the Sun, and Because there's just those mind-bending three-part harmonies. I mean, the best
Oh,
they've
dude,
ever done.
actually, I believe in Because I want to say they are 9-part harmonies.
Oh, right.
Not to
yeah.
totally nerd out, but I
Yeah.
think they were going Beach Boys. But
Mhm.
I liked what they did because they made it so much darker.
Mhm.
And I
Yeah.
think Because is like it is this beautiful darkness that is hard to capture in such a way that doesn't seem overly dark, but somehow that point gets there with that song.
With
Yeah.
with that moog underneath it, and
Oh, dude,
Oh.
I know.
Yeah.
and
so
and I
good.
just love how you go in the Sun King and it feels like the melding of these two songs, like the Here Comes the
Mhm.
Sun.
Yeah. King.
You know,
Yeah.
it,
They
And
just
don't
added
forget,
one
you can't
more word.
forget, You Never Give Me Your Money, man, which I
Oh.
think is just one of Paul's great. I mean, a medley opus within the medley, you
Yeah.
know, it's
Yeah.
like it
Yeah,
changes multiple
exactly.
times.
Mean
That's-
Mr. Mustard, Polythene Pam are so much fun. Then of
You
course,
know, Mean Mr. Mustard is actually still one of my favorite songs to play on guitar. And do you know like the Chet Atkins style of picking?
Yeah.
I
Sure,
play
sure.
that song in like the Chet Atkins style of
Oh,
picking.
that's cool,
And,
man. Yeah.
dude, it is still one of my favorites.
Yeah. And
I mean-
Polythene Pam is fun to strum as well, man. Just that-
it reminds me of that one song on Days of Future Past, you know, like Peak Hour. Like I feel
Oh,
like
Pika, yeah,
you
yeah.
know, like that really relentless beat playing underneath it, and just
Right.
so much fun. Maybe the lyrics wouldn't fly as well today, but you know, in the
No.
context of the song, I mean, it's
Sure.
pretty fun.
But she came in through the bathroom window, man. George's
Oh.
lines on the guitar, like
Yep.
following up
Just
Paul's, it's just
absolute
Oh,
brilliance.
unreal.
I mean,
And then the three of them playing guitar solos on the end, man.
yeah,
That's
that's
just so great. It's like they had a premonition that this was really the end, you know?
Yeah, they're going to call
dude,
it Mount
I-
Everest.
now, yeah, they
Yeah.
basically summoned it and were like, well, I mean,
Yeah.
Might as well just have a smoke up here. There's nothing else to do.
Right.
And I
Yeah.
just I love that they were going to do like this elaborate photo shoot for the album. They're going to go to the Himalayas, and they're like, "Hey, we're lazy. Let's just take a picture of us walking across the street," and it became the most iconic album cover of all time. Like
Dude,
that's the Beatles in a nutshell.
college,
Yeah.
me and the dude tried to reproduce that photo shoot with two other people that we lived with, and one of them was white tracksuit. Yeah, it was totally ridiculous.
Oh, that's great. Did you actually go to London to do it, or?
No, it was
You
just a
just
crosswalk at
recreation.
Grand Valley. Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
Close enough, right?
Yeah, yeah.
I mean,
No,
yeah.
but honestly,
cool.
guys, I mean, there was no other choice for this. Like, this was actually on the list I did for my channel. This was number 1 on the Nathaniel Ahern Company's top 100 albums, rightfully so. I think by default, as I said, I think it's the greatest album of all time. So
May have been mine. Ooh, I mean, there's a lot of Pink Floyd to consider, but
Oh,
Yeah,
yes.
mainly two. So, with that aside, because that's not part of this, is there anything that you guys feel was not represented based on? And I would actually like to know how you scored it if you'd review that for everyone. Just because, for my own curiosity's sake, I'm interested in that. But is there anything you felt wasn't represented or missed?
I have to mention
Yes.
one for sure.
Okay.
Actually, I'll mention two. The lower one, I just felt like the animals should have been represented in some form, even though
On the top
They-
5?
no, on the top 60 overall. Like they didn't make it.
They didn't
Um,
make, well, yeah, but trying
So
to think of an actual
just because
album
of the
theirs.
song, yeah, that's the thing. Like album wise, I get it, but House of the Rising Sun, I think, is one of the greatest songs of all time. And
I'm a
I just,
sucker for In My Life, man.
yeah,
Mm.
that's a great one
Sky
too.
Pilot.
But so but the big one that I'm actually like kind of pissed off that it didn't make the list at all.
I wonder if it's on
Is-
the wall.
It is on my wall. The Paul Butterfield Blues Band debut album from 1965 actually is my favorite album of all time because I'm a big blues guy, and I had been searching
Really?
for my whole life. I've been searching for the best blues album like ever made. And
Have you
I-
ever heard Electric Mud?
No.
Dude,
I gotta look that one up.
okay, in the late 1960s, they sent Muddy Waters into the studio with like a rock and roll band, and I can't think of the name of the band, and I apologize for that now, but it just came out on vinyl. Dude,
Oh,
I've
really?
listened to
Okay.
it, and it is sick, man. It's like
Okay.
it's like if the Black Keys did Delta Cream, but they had Muddy Waters sing
Oh my
for 'em
God.
instead of Dan Arbach. It's
I
so
will be
awesome.
checking
You
that
gotta
out
check it
very
out.
soon. But
But
sounds
anyways,
sick.
but
I
yeah,
don't
Paul
mean to
Butterfield
interrupt you,
Blues
I'm
Band,
sorry.
I feel like is the perfect blues album. Like there's no filler whatsoever. And it's just for so many different reasons, like one of the first integrated bands, half black, half white,
Yeah.
just melding together in such a perfect way. And Mike Bloomfield's lead guitar playing is just on another level, incredible.
He
So
played on a lot of Dylan stuff, didn't he?
Yeah, Highway 61.
yeah,
Yeah.
And then
mentioned
some
that.
of his later ones too.
So,
but
so
in the
those are the
70s.
only two that I wanted to bring up. But what about you, Nathaniel?
Well, there's one I know would have made the list, and someone didn't put it on their list, and you know who you are, so I'm calling you out a little bit there. The Times They Are Changing by Bob Dylan. Obviously Bob Dylan's well represented here, but
Sure.
I even think that's better than Freewheeling Bob Dylan. Just the
Oh.
really very
But-
very nihilistic
Oh.
tone of that album
Wait,
stands out.
61 are bringing it all back home, for God's sakes.
Yeah, I mean, no, they
Hmm.
were, they obviously they were in the top 20, so we had all of them on there represented, but it was the one that felt like kind of out of place because really, I mean, if you have Freewheelin', I feel like that goes hand in hand. I think it's even better, and then no Motown albums at all. I really thought, Yeah.
I'm not going to step on your toes. That's where I was going. Yes.
Yeah.
right, because I really was hoping that Going to a Go-Go by the Miracles would make the top 60, and it didn't. I mean, just for Tracks of My Tears and Ooh Baby Baby and Fork in the Road Alone, I mean, that is just a hit after hit. Also, another one that I know almost made the list from Elvis in Memphis is one like the best Blue Eyes Soul album ever made, and really
Okay.
a turning point for Elvis's career because it was really kind of like he had been down on the out and then he went in the army and he was making all those terrible movies. And then after the 67 special, this came out and it was just like a revelation.
I
and
didn't
then
get Elvis for the longest time.
Mhm.
In all honesty, like I just didn't get it. You know, I
Not a
would hear it
fan?
and I'm like, I get that these are great songs, but I
Right.
don't understand why, like, you know, the Beatles were so obsessed with Elvis. But I think I get it now because he was the first one who sounded authentic.
Yeah, I
You
get that
know?
now. Historically, it
Like
makes
listen to
sense.
him versus like Pat Boone. I mean, you're like, oh
Yeah.
man, that's
Whoa,
gross. Like,
hey,
That's
hey,
right,
that's no
right.
shouldn't even
comparison,
be
man.
legal.
Yeah, the time and place. Yeah, the
So
dude
bad.
like stood out. He was a rock star, but
Yeah.
yeah. So Grim, what about you? What do you were gonna go Motown stuff? or-
Dude, I mean, I know that it made Rolling Stone's list, and I don't know that I would have put it at number one, but dude, what's going on?
Well, that's
that's 70s.
70s.
Oh, I'm
71, I
sorry.
believe.
I didn't
Yeah.
realize that. Well, then I
Yeah.
guess if I was gonna pick one from the 60s, and I don't have it down here, but I do have it, and I'm not exactly sure, but dude, Stand by Sly and the Family
Yeah.
Stone.
Oh, that made the
Oh,
list.
that actually made it.
Dude, Stand, when you understand that, even from today's perspective of like the social climate and race
Mhm.
and all this, like Stand is relevant today as it ever would have been then.
Absolutely.
And
Yeah.
I don't know about the top five, but there were a couple that I feel like I missed on my list. One of those is Freak Out by the Mothers of Invention. I think that's a pretty awesome one because, dude, that is like Frank Zappa just coming into it. And
I'm not big on Zappa,
Yeah, me
but
neither.
I
Well,
I
at least
get
that album.
I'm
how
not the
some people-
hugest on him, but dude, he is if you understand like what he did and what he knew about music, it just an unmesswithable force. You know, and this
Mhm.
album in particular is like if Flaming Lips had existed in the 60s, that is this album.
Yeah. And I
But
think
that
they
one in Days
almost
of
made the
Future
top
Past,
60.
is-
They were
Oh, did it
close.
really?
It
That's
was
cool.
pretty
Yeah.
close, I think.
That's
So
cool.
Yeah,
but
and
yeah,
another
I mean,
one.
yeah.
I just want to mention Gets Gilberto. I mean, really, the
Mm.
definitive bossa nova album was in everybody's living room in the mid '60s during that craze, and that was like almost like just was inched off the list.
There were
but
so many that were this close. I mean, West
Right.
Side Story
Yeah.
also almost made it. A lot of
I'm not a
interesting
musical
stuff.
guy, so for me, West Side
Yeah.
Story does not resonate.
But I don't know.
Yeah.
I feel like Sondheim and Bernstein, that music kind of transcends musical theater.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think that's
Yeah.
fair. If you look at that, especially from the perspective of popular culture, I think there's a lot of people who know that music that may not know the plays, which says something about it, right?
Yeah,
Right.
absolutely. But yeah, so much great stuff. And we probably could have done a top 100 easily, but
Yeah.
we're doing 60 of the 60s. So that leads to, obviously, we already made this announcement, the top 70 of the 70s. We are taking the list. So send them in. If you can send a whole 70, do it. If you can only send a top 10, do that as well. It won't be ranked as high in points, but we will take your list and do this. We're going to run right into it, man. The top 70 starting early next month. So
Yeah.
In
And
a way,
make
that's
sure.
kind of more exciting because as awesome as the 60s were. Oh, did Captain Beefheart in the Magic Band, Safe as Milk, did that come close?
I
think
came
no,
that's
I don't
close.
think
I think it,
real
I mean,
underrated album for the 60s.
yeah.
But
I got to get into Beefheart for sure.
Dude,
It's the one I haven't gotten
that's
into
the
yet.
one to get into. It goes in some weird directions, but I think that one's amazing. But dude, the 70s one that you guys do, I'm excited for it. That's going to be awesome because
Oh.
they're just awesome.
my
stuff.
favorite decade of music
Yeah.
history.
Cool.
I
by
would
far.
have to agree as well. When you look at holistically speaking, like, all of a sudden Zeppelin and Floyd are in the mix and
Mhm.
still the Beatles, ironically enough,
Sure.
Yeah,
Yeah.
a little bit. And
A
then
lit-
Stevie Wonder, of
Yeah.
course, and
Yeah.
Marvin Gaye. They're going to be on the list already. I won't
Oh,
get
yeah.
too much into it. But yeah, could you explain how the voting works, John? Because I know we were talking about that earlier. I don't think you
Yeah.
got a chance to say there.
Yeah, obviously. So you want to rank your list from your very favorite at number 1 all the way down to your least favorite, if you can do a top 70, and send that to us however you can, either in the comments below, or if you have other ways of reaching us on social media, do it that way. We tabulate it on a spreadsheet with points, and what else can I say about it? You'd kind of know more of the gritty details of how we end up. It's a lot of work, but I love it. I love making
Yes.
lists, and I think aside from our little quibbles here aside, I'm very happy with how the top 60 worked out. I think it was a blast.
Absolutely. So much representation from so many different artists overall. A lot of kinks, which is great. Very happy to see that.
Mhm.
And yeah,
Face to
guys.
face, baby.
But yeah, I mean, absolutely, man. You got to get those lists in though. May 31st. That is the deadline. We are setting it. And
Yeah.
of course, I just want to thank Grim again for coming on here, because it was so much fun just
Dude,
like
thank you
riffing
guys.
about this.
It was a pleasure to have been had.
Dude,
Yes.
it was an honor all on our side, man. And please, if you haven't checked out his channel, Scratch a Track, the Dude and Grim Show is fantastic. I mean, they really get into it, going deep on which tracks to scratch, and reviews and reactions and more. So it's awesome stuff, guys. So in
And
the
just-
description below, please subscribe.
And really such great production value too. I'm just astounded
Yeah.
of the work that you put into those videos, because they seem
Oh,
so
thanks.
seamless, man.
Well, I mean, dude, was a film and video major.
Hey,
It would make sense.
good to use. Well, guys, thanks again, and we will see you soon. Obviously, 70's coming up, baby. So we'll see you
Thank
soon.
you guys.
Peace.
Been a pleasure.
See you later.